And now, please join me in welcoming to the stage Bryan Fuller and David Dastmalchian.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming out, and thank you to the Hammer Museum for supporting horror.
Yes.
We've got Late Night with the Devil tonight, and we have The Substance tomorrow, so it's wonderful that the museum is acknowledging our genre. I assume everybody here are horror fans. It is my favorite genre.
It is the genre, and it's really exciting to be back at the Hammer. I've sat and watched some wonderful films here in the past, and even was part of a piece that was in the gallery, and now it's exciting to be a part of this film that's screening here. So thank you to the Contenders series. It means a lot. Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for showing up tonight. So I don't know if, are you all familiar with Grave Conversations, the interview series that Dave does for Titan Caskets? It's great. And in honor of the way Dave conducts those interviews, which is delightful, there's sort of, I'm going to warm up with some random questions in the genre. The first question is, Frankenberry, Count Chocula, Boo Berry, Fruit Brute, all the monsters are represented in the cereals, but there's no devil cereal. What would you call the devil cereal if there was one?
Oh, I love this. Raspberry Reagans. Maybe pea soup Petey. I don't think anybody
Petey
wants cereal that tastes like pea soup, but
maybe not.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Fuck, kill, marry. Demons, monsters, aliens.
You marry the monsters, you fuck the demons, and kill all aliens, please, dear God.
That sounds like Trump culture.
Yeah. You'll see.
If you were the devil, who would you possess and what would you have them do?
Oh, dear God, I'd possess Clarence Thomas and I'd have him start voting properly. Or judging properly, yeah.
If you were going to make a deal with the devil, what deal would you strike?
Can we get a redo on November? Oh gosh, that's a big existential question. So I'm going to make it really simple and fun, like that we get to make lots of horror movies together.
I would love that. Now to some questions about the thematic. You were raised religiously or with religion. So what does the devil mean to you growing up in a religious household versus what it means to Jack Delroy?
Oh, the devil has been like a root and like pillar in like mental health struggles I've had since I was a child. I was totally indoctrinated into really problematic and I think really psychically destructive view of the human experience through the lens of behavior that is either rewarded or punished with eternal damnation or eternal paradise. And so when you kind of, fill a 7-year-old's head with that stuff, it has effects, lasting effects, cracks in the veneer of, the psychology of the way a human being can develop and looks at their experience through the lens of questioning every motive and questioning every experience they have based upon these kinds of fundamental paradigms, which have been around for thousands of years. They're not limited exclusively to, evangelical Protestantism, but it's the part of the buckle of the Bible Belt that I was, brought up in. And it really haunted me and in an interesting way was a part of a lot of, I think, some of the different battles or struggles that I've confronted individually, personally, when wrestling with depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, and just mental health battles. So in the course of myself liberation from these concepts and in my journey of freedom, thanks to the mental health community, but also just communication, storytelling, movies, literature, great books. I found coming to be a part of this film kind of a full circle moment for me. And Jack, I don't think has any of the same hangups. I think he was probably raised in a much more like loose Midwest reality. That phone chime has been going. Do we know the culprit? Who point a finger? You know?
I think it's Satan.
I think it may be the devil. It's fascinating to me that it's continued throughout, but it didn't it added a weird element to the film in a way. I was like,
so being of that age where you were raised in a religious environment and being around in the 80s in part, when the Satanic Panic was really reaching a fever pitch. Does anybody remember Satanic Panic? There were like people old enough to remember the Satanic. I see a lot of young people, and I'm glad that you're here, but it was crazy in the 80s in particular. What do you remember about Satanic Panic and being raised religious and how that affected? For those who don't know, for the young folks who don't know, everything was Satan. It was all Satan's fault. And people would use Satanic Panic as a reason to condemn, vilify, falsely accuse. The most famous case was probably the McMartin case in the 80s. That was a school for young children, and the therapist convinced the children that they were being molested in satanic rituals, and it brought down the school, and it was all false. It was all just crazy panic because people were looking for a boogeyman that didn't exist.
It was all false. This is the crazy thing. There wasn't like just a few, random. There was no documented, proven cases of satanic ritualistic abuse, sacrifice, etc. in the United States in the 1980s. Now, was there massive, widespread, covered up abuse of children ritualistically through the papacy? 100%. Was the church themselves and was major powerful position people in our government doing the stuff that was being, falsely accused against the witches? 100%. Is that anything that those of us who are witches aren't used to? It's been thousands of years of this bullshit. But I was in Youth for Christ. We had like a weekly gathering, which I not all of it was negative. It was a wonderful social thing, and I made lots of good friends there. And there were times talking about spirituality was really positive. But the weirdest stuff, like they had the Kansas. Part of Kansas that I lived in had an actual police division dedicated to occult, busting the occult. And they would bring in a cop, true story, a detective even, who told us that you're going to go to a concert and you're going to see people throwing this sign up. And that is their recruitment tool to get you to join their secret club. And they're going to take you out to the woods where they kill babies and blah, 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 blah. I was like, and I believed and was caught up in all of it because you're a child who believes what adults tell you. And great, at that time, big, religious personalities like Mike Warnke, if anyone's familiar with he was a huge Christian stand-up comic who claimed to have been a high priest in the Church of Satan and had seen babies being murdered and all proven false. But it's like, where does that come from? Where does that need to have the enemy, to have this thing outside of ourselves? Because what it was doing truly, when you listened to between the lines, and I look back on the sermons or the stuff that I was taught and educated on, it was that, Queen was part of this, that these certain rock acts, that these certain artists, these certain figures, they were queer. They were, had a different persuasion politically, maybe sexually, maybe all these things that they were trying to kill. It's fascinating. It is a really dark time to be a kid.
Were the filmmakers aware of that? Was that part of the conversation when you were brought into this movie, or was it kind of a celebration of a genre
more a celebration of a genre. These are guys who are from a country that has its own share of problems, but in Australia, they just don't have the gun problem and they don't have the crazy religion problem that we have here. And so I don't think that was a thing. But they were grateful that I could bring that layering to and inform parts of the story that I wanted to, like, you know, help explore with that stuff.
I mean, it is a great genre, the devil possession genre, the satanic genre. There's a lot of great movies in this genre. Rosemary's Baby, any sort of deal with the devil movies like Hellraiser or even The Vivitch. What are your favorites in the genre? Like coming to this, where you're like, oh, I get to make one of these movies because I love them so much, like this movie.
Oh, Exorcist is it. I mean, that changed my life the first time I saw it. But also, I mean, oh my God, there's been so many really great possession films over time. I think about Satan's Slaves. I thought that was so great, and I love a lot of the older, like, you know, classic stuff. I remember when I was a little kid seeing White Zombie, which is a kind of possession movie. I guess more of you know, control. But I think it's really an interesting metaphor in horror, especially for anyone like myself who's wrestled with or dealt with battles in addiction. And I think any of us who, you don't have to have necessarily been an alcoholic or a drug addict, but like you've been addicted to relationships, work, suffering, fear, and the way that those things can take over your body and even feel like, oh my God, when you look back on certain behaviors when you were in the throes of a really bad relationship or when you were in the throes of a really bad addictive, you know, point in your life with food or with whatever, you felt like you weren't in control of your body. That's something so many of us can relate to. And I think it's horrifying. And I think it's why it makes for fun storytelling.
Do you think that's part of the appeal of these stories, is that when we are in the throes of addictive behavior or behavior that feels beyond our control, it's a nice scapegoat that said, Satan did it?
Of course it is. And that's what's really wonderful with the way that Colin and Cameron, you know, constructed this. And I was my biggest voice coming in on this as a producer on the film was like, I really, 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 really want to lean into the did he or didn't he, did she or didn't she, was she or wasn't she, so that the audience is watching this being like, how much of this is an actual girl possessed by a devil, and how much of this is a man who has not processed the trauma of grief, who hasn't processed the trauma of his mental fracturing, his alcoholism, etc., who is now, because of the immense and intense amount of guilt and shame and pressure that he's carrying on psychically, starting to like crack and see that or experience it that way, because it makes so much more sense. It's so much easier to go, oh, it's the devil, you know? The devil's in all of us, sorry.
Well, I think there's something interesting about looking at the Satanism of this era, which was all very devil-oriented and sin-oriented, and this is the monster that's going to lure us and seduce us into, you know, the temptations of humanity. And then you look at kind of modern Satanism, which is really almost more Christian than extreme Christianity, in that it is about a fearless pursuit of philosophy and knowledge and pleasure and tolerance. What does that juxtaposition say to you in terms of what the face of Satanism is now versus what the face of Satanism was in the 70s and 80s when this show was taking place?
I've thought about this stuff a lot, and I've done a lot of research, and I've read everything from the LaVeyan, you know, Satanism back to the, you know, I love and think it's really fascinating and interesting to study like Huxley and all the magic, you know, practitioners of especially the 20th century into contemporary. But what's happening with like the Church of Satan now is it's a completely political organization that just knows and understands the power of using the word religion in the United States government, and thankfully using that as their own way of weaponizing against kind of the established oppressors. I think that anything that's dogmatic, I fear. Anything that is, this is the way, really gets my hackles up a little bit, because I just don't believe there is one way for all of humanity. So it doesn't matter to me what the religion, what the practice, what the belief system is. It's really tricky when that message is, this is the way. So contemporary Satanists range from, magic users who are prescribing to the belief that, Satan is a form of taking a fucking sledgehammer, to the patriarchal kind of break it down established way of doing things, since we went from being nomadic to agrarian civilizations, and how important it was to utilize religion, I think, to get people to fall in line so that they would make sure and keep in order to the way our society needed to be structured, so that people would parse out money, et cetera, for things, all the way to like knuckleheads who are like, as dangerous as Christians can be. And it's everywhere. I fear dogma. That's it.
And modern day Satanism is non-theistic and non-violent, and not to bash Christianity, because I consider myself a satanic Christian, because I do believe in the tenets of true Christianity, and I do believe in the tenets of modern Satanism, which is all about tolerance. There is something about the fear that movies like this are taking advantage of or having fun with in this case, because it feels like it is having fun with a genre that we're very familiar with, and kind of pointing up that for a lot of religions or a lot of conservative people or a lot of small-minded people, the edict for the flock is don't want more, don't desire more. And if you want more, if you're in pursuit of more, that's a sin, and you shouldn't want more. You should be complacent and happy where you are, whereas that seems antithetical to life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's not in our biological nature. And it's also, I don't think, in our spiritual nature it's all about what is your truth? What is your most authentic truth? Jack is so detached from what is his authentic truth at this stage in his journey. That's horrifying. I have been there before. I know what it feels like to be Jack Delroy. I know what it feels like to be like doing a play in front of, hundreds of people, or doing a, press for something and presenting a version of yourself to the outside world, while internally you are completely collapsing and have no clue how you're going to make it to the next day. And I think that we are all of us under this bizarre, dark, terrifying, tormenting, universally acknowledged, maybe not acknowledged, universally experienced plague, this shadow that seems determined to convince all of us that we don't deserve it, that we don't belong, that we are alone, that our suffering is singular, that we really don't, I really believe, to some degree or another, every one of us throughout the day, and many of us for a large portion of the day, are wrestling with that. Why? Why the fuck does that have to be a part of our brain's way of processing being human beings? I don't know, but I do know that when we can have some fun and we can tell a story, when we can feel some sorts of connection with this stuff, then maybe we don't have to feel that way, for the whole day at least. Maybe for a few minutes we can go, oh yeah, we're all in this shit bag together.
And that's why I love these stories, and I love movies that are about fear of the other taking over, because we're all othered in some way. Everybody feels like they're an other. And if you're turning to Christianity to feel belonging, if you're turning to Satan to feel belonging, however you can find belonging, seek it out because it is our comfort. And I want to thank you for speaking so honestly and openly about your past struggles with mental illness and, the openness that you've talked about that has, I think it helps people to know that if you're experiencing depression, if you're experiencing anxiety, you are not alone in those things, and you've been beautifully open and honest about those things in your past.
Thank you.
And I think that's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. And present, mind I say. I mean, it's a daily. It's still it's a thing that will be with me until I leave this place, and that's okay. I don't think there's a big victory flag that you throw up when you feel like you've just conquered.
When you've had a good day.
Yeah, when you have a good day, do it though, for sure. I'm going to treat myself. This has been a good day. And seeing this crowd, I hid up in the back for a while, you guys. And it is, and I also hid down here. And I watched your face when you see that Jack has stabbed poor Lily. Oh, that's a fun reaction to watch on people's faces. Thank you guys for that. That is what a gift.
We're going to open it up to the crowd if anybody has questions. Look, like we can't pick you to answer.
See you.
There's going to be folks so get their attention. Get the ushers' attention. They'll be the one.
Oh, hello. Hi. Thank you. Up here.
Hi.
Sorry.
I see you.
Great. Hi. First of all, great work on the film.
Thank you.
You did an incredible job. And
Thank you.
I was wondering, so most live TV broadcasts are obviously shot multicam. I was wondering if you guys shot the film multicam, and if so, if that affected your performance and how you approached your performance, knowing it was multicam as opposed to single cam like most films.
The cinematographer and directors worked really diligently to try and recreate the feeling and vibe of watching an episode of, you name it, Johnny Carson, et cetera, in that time period, Dick Cavett. And using the big tube TV cameras as a prop, but also having like our camera team with cameras in them and manipulating them. In fact, our camera team, some of the camera operators and crew, we dressed in period attire because there was multiple cameras running. And so you would inevitably catch some of the other guys in shot. And that was so cool. I loved it. Let's let the freaking boom dip into frame. Let's let that feel authentically, imperfect, the way live television especially did at that time. So as a performer, knowing that in all those scenes that are on the live broadcast, I'm playing to camera, it was fine. It was totally fine and wonderful because I never felt like it would be awkward or weird for me to be leaning into my awareness of the cameras and where they were. Whereas when I'm portraying normally on a film set, I really, technically, as an actor, find it important to know where my cameras are so I can hopefully be giving directors what they need. But you definitely don't want to let that energetically be known. And then in the behind the scenes stuff, it was just a single camera, usually handheld, and it was really fun getting to play that way too, because those were strictly well choreographed blocking patterns so that you could feel that kind of frenetic energy behind the scenes.
Here. What is your favorite horror movie? For both of you.
You go first.
Alien, the first Alien is probably my favorite horror movie and maybe my favorite movie. And it's the movie that got me into loving movies and understanding the psychology of production design, because you had a penis-headed monster that a mother was was willing to sacrifice her children for the giant cock, and there were like vagina-shaped doors and fallopian tube-shaped ships. So I loved all of those aspects, and it really turned me on to the ways we can tell story and how deeply we can cut.
Geiger knew.
Geiger knew.
It's I'm sorry. It's like a four-way tie. I think it's The Wolf Man. I think the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of the greatest films ever made of all time. It just changed my life. The Exorcist in a film called Audition.
Yeah.
Is there? We're doing one more. Is that it?
Right here.
Okay, or two more. Hello. I'm sorry. Is somebody at the mic?
Yes.
Hi.
okay.
How are you? Go ahead.
Hi. This is weird hearing my voice. Sorry about that. Just amazing movie. I love it. It's like one of my favorite movies. I showed it to my brother. We love it a lot.
Thank you.
We used to get hunted when back we lived in Mexico City, so that's pretty cool seeing all that stuff. Anyway,
Thank you, brothers.
I was just wondering what was the process to just get into character. Like, did you look at like any old videos or things
Oh, the
like
magic of YouTube. I listened to every night before going to bed for months leading up to going to production. I just would put on old episodes of Johnny Carson and Dick Cavett and Don Lane and even David Letterman, Conan O'Brien, you name it. Everything's available on YouTube now. So I just watch their opening monologues and watch their interviews. And there's a musicality, there's a kind of rhythmic patter to the way that television late night hosts would do their shtick back in the day, especially, and I felt like I really wanted to find that signature kind of patter for Jack, because it's not something that comes naturally to me. So it's just like trying to learn how to play a whole new form of music, if you're a musician, I guess. Is that it? Okay.
Okay. Not to borrow a line from the movie, but good to see you again, David.
Good to see you.
All right.
Thank you.
And since you mentioned not everything is one way, I have a choice of questions. One related to DePaul or one related to thematic themes throughout the movie. Which
What was the first question? The first option?
related to DePaul University?
The school?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's where I
go
went.
for
That's
it.
where I went.
Yeah,
to as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
All right, here we go. You already had made a pact with the devil since your days at DePaul. Did the Blue Devil inspire you in any way to look at this script with different eyes?
So, for those not in the know, I attended the theater school DePaul University in Chicago. The mascot for the DePaul University team is the Blue Demons, Blue Devils, Blue Demons. The Blue Devils, I know that. No, I don't think the fact that the mascot of my college was a devil influenced this film in any way, or my performance in it. But I will say that the training I received when I was at the theater school at DePaul absolutely influenced the way that I approached playing Jack Delroy. In fact, this entire film was shot in many ways like we were performing in a stage play, and being on a set like this and getting the opportunity to just explore every day a set with a live band and risers, which is like being in a theater. It took me back to being in Chicago and being on stage there, and the tools and tricks that I learned for how to manipulate emotional states of being to try and hopefully authentically convince people that something might be really happening to you when, it's not. That's the fun. That's the magic of this stuff. So the experience I had at DePaul lives with me every time I walk onto any set, anytime I start to manifest a character, because of the history that I got to spend, invested in everything from Greek theater to improv to, doing just phenomenal work that you could have only done in a lab space like that. I'm always really grateful for it.
I think that's all the time that we have. So once again, thank you to the Hammer Museum.
Thank you, Hammer.
Thank you, everyone here, for coming out and supporting horror as an art form, which it is. So enjoy horror for your holidays. Everybody should see Black Christmas. It's a perennial. And see you next time. Come back for the substance tomorrow.
Come back for the substance tomorrow. Thank you.